of members and merchandise profits. So please check out our site. It's the best around. And be sure to stop by our store. It's loaded with items that'll have you feeling a sense of member pride and victory. Come unite with us today at tlbtalk.com and join the social media revolution.
You can't handle the truth.
You're listening to Republic Broadcasting Network. Visit republicbroadcasting.org today because you can handle the truth.
The American dream has become a nightmare. Signs of the time are on cardboard on corners in town. Like a cancer that's silently spreading, there's an unspoken fear. We're on our way down. We must take America back. Main Street to Wall Street, cities and states.
Worldwide as National Intel Report on Republic Broadcasting Network, Liberty Lighthouse on Mojo 50 Radio, Patriot Nation Radio Network, and anywhere else that you're watching or listening to the show. I am Peter Serafine, your host for the next 2 hours of common sense and constitutional discussion. Got a pretty exciting show for you planned this evening. In the bottom of this first hour, so in about 25 minutes, we got Scott Thompson from Right to Bear Insurance. He's going to come on and tell us all things Second Amendment that are going on in the world today. And then at the top of the second hour, so 7 p.m. Eastern Time, if you're watching or listening live, Paul Engel is going to join us. That's Paul Engel from the from constitutionstudy.com. No, the constitutionstudy.com. I found Paul in his podcast, Constitution Study, and then I found him on America Out Loud, one of them other free speech networks. And I reached out to him and said, "Hey, Paul, how you doing?" And he's going to come on. I think we're going to talk about, well, I really like his perspective of the Supreme Court and how the juris system works in our country. I like how he looks at precedents as not necessarily a good thing. And I also like how he has said recently that, yes, we've had some, let's say, positive Supreme Court cases lately. Some opinions come from the Supreme Court that those of us on the so-called right side of the political aisle like, but if you actually read the opinions, they're not necessarily for the right reasons. And I really liked how Paul encapsulated that in one of his shows. So I'm hoping that we have time to talk about that today. But starting out with, let me give you an update on what I've been working on. We have my new book is coming out on September 17th, Constitution Day, A More Tyrannical King. I'm really hoping that if you have any desire, any interest at all in buying my new book, A More Tyrannical King, that you will please pre-order it. If you pre-order it, I might have a chance at showing up on some bestseller list somewhere for a minute. See, pre-orders all get recorded as sales on the day of release, so September 17th. So for an hour or so, I might have my name, my book on one of the bestseller lists for, like I said, for an hour. And I would love that. Just for a second, be able to screenshot it and say, "Oh, look, bestseller in the old men who like to talk politics category," or whatever. So please, if you're even considering buying the new book, A More Tyrannical King, please pre-order it. And of course, you can do that at my website, liberty-lighthouse.com/books. And then the other thing is the Liberty Lighthouse Classroom. And I have to say thanks to those of you out there listening that, what was it, 3-4 weeks ago, I came on here and I said, "Hey, I might do these classes. What do you think?" And we had callers call into the show and say, yes, you should definitely do classes. We need education. The American people need to understand the Constitution. So you showed me that support. And the very next week, I had started, and I had at least one lesson from one class up. And I greatly appreciate that. And then, so I told you all about that. And then a couple of you went out and immediately signed up to be Lighthouse keepers, become members of the Liberty Lighthouse classroom, and support me in my effort to create these constitutional classes. And I greatly appreciate that. But to be quite honest, I need one more person to become a Lighthouse Lightkeeper or Lighthouse Keeper. I can't even say the name of my own program anymore. A Lighthouse Keeper. I need one more person to sign up to be a Lighthouse Keeper. And that would cover the expenses of hosting these classes and pay for the materials and all that kind of stuff. And I would no longer be losing money, at least on that. Now, I lose money on the show all the time, surrounded by thousands of dollars worth of equipment, and don't make anywhere near what it costs to maintain this stuff. So it would be very nice if I could at least recoup the cost of the Liberty Lighthouse classroom. So one more person, go to liberty-lighthouse.com/classroom and subscribe. Become a member of the Lighthouse Keepers. And if you use code Lighthouse until September 17th, until the book comes out, use the code Lighthouse and get half off. So that would be $5 a month. And as of right now, I've got 2 courses done, published, ready to go. That's like 15 hours worth of course material that's available there right now for that $5 a month, or you can pay for them individually. And I've got my 2 books, my 2 current books up there where you can download those as ebooks if you're a Lighthouse Keeper. And yeah, I'm trying to make it worth your money, but also cover the cost of doing all this stuff because, you know, there is expense to having all this stuff posted online. So one more Lighthouse Keeper, and it's no longer an expense. I greatly appreciate that. I think that's it for the updates. Enough self-plugging. My classroom and my book. Those are the 2 things going on right now. Let's talk about news for a few minutes, right? I have this little Post-it note that I just recently stumbled across. I don't know, it was underneath my soundboard or something like that. And it is for the years 2016 through 2019. It is my income and then how much I had to pay in federal income tax. And off to the side, of course, the percentage. Why does this spark interest in me again? Why did I think about it again? Well, that's because Bidenomics, because Resident Biden is going around the country talking about Bidenomics and how it is saving our country and saving our economy and how Bidenomics is a good thing. I'm pretty sure there's let's say a few of you out there that might disagree with that statement. And if so, you know, you're always welcome to call into the show. This is a live call-in show. The call-in line being 512-248-8252. That's 512-248-8252. So I found this little Post-it note of how much I made in income and then how much I had to pay in income taxes and then the percentage off to the side. And I remember why I did this. I made this little thing in 2020 when everybody was talking about how the Trump tax cuts only benefited the rich. And the Trump tax cuts were the problem with the economy. And Trump tax cuts are why we're going so far into debt. Well, let me see. At no time in the 4 years on this thing, with 2016 through 2019, did I make more than made a little bit more. 1 year I made $65,689. But in the lowest year, I only made $40,000. In 2016, I paid 10% in federal income tax. Now I'm ignoring all of the deductions and everything. I'm taking how much I paid in tax versus how much my income was. That's it. Forget all the deductions and nonsense and whatever. I paid 10% of my income in taxes in 2016. In 2017, that went up to 10.6% of my income. Now, if you remember, the Trump tax cuts went into effect in 2018. And my personal tax rate dropped down to 7.2%. So I'm not rich. I just told you what I made those years between 40,000 and 66,000. And the year that the Trump tax cut went into effect, my income tax rate dropped 3.4%. And the following year it was 7.5. So I went from 10 and 10.6 to 7.2 and 7.5 the 2 years of the Trump tax cut that I have here on this little post-it note that I just found. So there's another example of the media lying to us. Again, I'm not rich, and they said that those tax cuts only benefited the rich. Go figure, right? Let's talk a little bit more about Bidenomics while we're at it. So the president is going around the country trying to tout his economic success. At the same time, news headlines reporting that for the first time, consumer credit card debt has reached $1 trillion. Now, if the economy is so good, and you and I, well, we're making so much money, we got all those raises, and inflation is going down, and all of that stuff. If the economy is so super fantastic under the Bidenomics economic plan, then why did we hit $1 trillion in consumer credit card debt? You don't have to be a genius to know that credit card debt is bad. Nobody can afford the interest rates on credit card debt. Even if you're rich and you technically can afford them, it's stupid high interest rates on credit card debt. Unsecured loans have the highest interest rates. So I asked that question to you, the audience out there. Why? If the if the Bidenomics economy is so super fantabulous, why have we hit $1 trillion in consumer credit card debt? Now I'm going to be honest with you here. I'm going to tell you some stuff that you probably don't need to know about me and my personal life, my personal finances. I don't make six figures. I'm just going to say that. I make less than $100,000. I have zero credit card debt. All of my debt is my mortgage and the home equity line of credit that I have attached to my house as well. So all of my debt is tied to my house. Worst case scenario, I sell my house, my debt's gone. No debt, no unsecured debt. I like it that way, and I learned that lesson the hard way. I have 2 ex-wives, one of which drove me to bankruptcy, and one of them drove me to the brink of bankruptcy. And I've learned not to use credit that way. I have a credit card. I pay it off every week when I get a paycheck because I only use it for the whole cashback rewards thing. I use it for my day-to-day purchases just for the cashback. So I don't participate. I'm not one of the people included in this $1 trillion of credit card debt. So I would like to hear from you. I would like to hear your opinion of Bidenomics. Not your opinion of Bidenomics. Let me rephrase that. I would like to hear your experience with Bidenomics. And I'd like to hear that within the next 15 minutes or the next 10 minutes before we get to the first commercial break. And we have Scott Thompson coming in as a guest. So 512-248-8252. If you have an experience with Bidenomics and ridiculous amounts of credit card debt, I'd love to hear that. The other interesting things I saw in the headlines that I wrote down on my little notes here are, two of them are kind of sort of COVID related. But before we do that, since we're moving into something COVID related, let's talk about the wellness company. TWC.health, the wellness company, TWC.health, where you can get high quality American made supplements. You can get virtual care with doctors and pharmacists that aren't part of the woke medical community, the doctors and pharmacists that stood up for your medical freedom, that got canceled because they were standing up for your medical freedom. This is where you can reach it. The wellness company, TWC.health. Use code Lighthouse when you visit TWC.health. Whether you're there to get a prescription because you want to be a little bit of a prepper and you want to have a stockpile of the medications, or whether you're there just to get good quality supplements, or whether you actually need care and you're going to talk to a doctor or a legit issue. TWC.health. TWC.health. Use the code Lighthouse. So speaking of health, I just saw the FDA is now allowing doctors to prescribe ivermectin for COVID. I'm pretty sure I lost my YouTube account for mentioning ivermectin as a possible treatment for COVID about 2 years ago. Yes, that's right. My YouTube account was completely canceled because I had discussions with doctors about possible treatments of COVID. I lost all of my YouTube followers. They're gone. Yeah, I'm back on YouTube now. I just did that a couple of weeks ago. I created a new channel. We'll see how long that will last. But ivermectin is now allowed to be prescribed to treat COVID. Do you remember when pharmacists were standing up and not allowing prescriptions for ivermectin and hydroxychloroquine to be filled because they thought maybe the doctor was prescribing it for COVID? And, the pharmacist knows better than the doctor. You remember that? I do. It was pathetic. Another interesting story, kind of, sort of related, but not really. Remdesivir. Remember that, right? Remdesivir, the drug that somebody whooped up to treat COVID, the drug that somebody whooped up. And oh, by the way, Anthony Fauci makes a fortune on that drug. Well, somebody was treated with remdesivir that was contaminated. In that vial of remdesivir there were little shards of glass. And this poor, unfortunate individual suffered 2 strokes after being treated with this contaminated remdesivir, and also had to have a leg amputated. So he sued, as he should. And well, there's this act out there, this bill, this act, whatever, called the PrEP Act, that protects doctors and hospitals for treating people in good faith. They're pharmaceutical companies. It protects them all as long as, malpractice isn't involved. So this guy sued, and of course the defense from the people that he's suing, the defense they give is, the PrEP Act. You can't sue us. We treated you properly. We gave you the right drugs. But he lost a leg and had 2 strokes. Well, a federal judge has decided that they can't use the PrEP Act for their defense. For the first time ever, somebody is suing around the PrEP Act. Now, granted, it is because it was contaminated, not because the drug didn't do what it's supposed to do or because of side effects or anything like that. It's because it was contaminated. Now, I only saw that on the Epic Times. I didn't see that on any of the mainstream channels. I didn't see anything about you can now prescribe ivermectin for COVID on any of the mainstream channels either. Those channels that called ivermectin horse dewormer, none of them are reporting that you can now prescribe ivermectin for COVID. I wonder why. Where did the curiosity of our media go? They have lost all curiosity to investigate anything that might possibly debunk any part of their belief system. They won't investigate this ivermectin story because they all called it horse dewormer. And if they investigate and find out that, oh, look, it was a Nobel Prize winning human medication. And oh, look, apparently it is effective against COVID. Otherwise, it wouldn't be approved. They won't investigate that, the United States is contracting foreign companies to build wind farms off the east coast of the United States. Why are we contracting foreign companies? Well, that's because we don't have the experience. Okay, maybe that's legitimate. But coincidentally, when we started building these wind farms offshore in 2015, at the same time, we've started to see more and more whales dying and beaching themselves. Now, correlation does not equal causation. But 2015, we start building wind farms. 2015, more whales start dying. Hey, maybe somebody should investigate that. That curiosity doesn't exist in the mainstream media anymore. How about another one that I just saw on one of the more conservative leaning news networks? 408,000 illegal immigrants are enrolled in American colleges. Who's paying for that? Maybe that's something that mainstream media should look into. Oh, no, we can't look into that. If we look into that, we might have to acknowledge that millions upon millions of people rushing across the southern border might not be the best idea. Where is the curiosity? I don't know. Apparently, the curiosity in the Main Street people is gone. Hey, it's break time. We'll be back in 3 minutes. On the other side of the break, we got Scott Thompson from Right to Bear Insurance going to be joining us. That's always a good time. Stick around.
While you were sleeping, they came and took it all away.
Here's some interesting news. Due to all the recent claims about possible nuclear wars, viruses, solar flares, and civil unrest, people are scrambling to prepare and stockpile food. But the one thing out of reach for many is an underground bunker. Until now. Because you can now have a 3D printed underground bunker in just one day. An excavator digs a hole in your backyard, and 3dbunkers.com shows up in a small truck and sets up their 3D printer under a tent completely undetected. They can print as many rooms as you want at a fraction of the cost compared to traditional metal bunkers. 3D Bunkers uses polymer concrete, which is 5 times stronger than regular cement. YouTube 3dbunkers.com and watch the...
What's up, Scott?
Hey, not too much. Can you hear me?
I hear you just fine.
All right.
However, Mike, I can't hear the commercials or anything, so make sure you turn it up when I need to shut up. So what you got for us tonight, Scott?
I don't know. I liked what your article was talking about. And did you see the article I sent you that kind of goes in with it a little bit?
No, I didn't see that. When did you send it?
I sent you an article about the Dems wanting to put a 1,000% excise tax on any assault rifle or magazine that can hold more than 10 rounds, and make the magazines also be serialized.
Nice.
So I think we can talk about that and about how that's, another attempt to erode the Second Amendment, and why, right to bear is an important thing to have for people, because they're trying any tactic, and you don't want to be the person that gets into use of force and then they try a tactic with you.
Right.
That we all know is loony, but they do it anyway, and you suffer. So I figured we could kind of talk about that, if that's good for you.
Hey, that works. You're, as far as I'm concerned, you're the show's Second Amendment expert. So
Ooh. A lot of pressure, Pete.
Second Amendment related works for me.
All right. Yeah, how crazy. I just heard you talking. I was listening. I heard you talking about the glass in the
Remdesivir.
Yeah, man, that's crazy.
Well, thank God some judge opened their eyes and is allowing the lawsuit to go forward.
Right. Yeah, because the intent of the lawsuit is, if they're doing it in good faith and everything's in a row, if something happens, they're not liable, which I think is a little bull crap. But yeah, if they're... Oh, we're coming back now. We'll talk after.
Hey, welcome back. I'm Peter Serafine, and I'm here to remind you that we on the right side of the political aisle, we need your help. We need you to go out there and share the fact that you're watching and or listening to this show right now. Go out there and tell somebody that they need to listen to the show, because quite honestly, there isn't an algorithm out there that helps me a bit. So I need your help in any way possible. And the easiest thing you can do is say, hey, go listen to this guy. Send them a link, especially if you do it like in person, not just put it out on your social media. An in-person link that you send text to a friend or a family member or something like that. That is the best thing that you can do. That's the best way to help spread the word and help us on the right side of the political aisle. And as I promised, we're coming back, and it's time for Scott Thompson.
And now, welcome to the studio, FFL holder, firearms instructor, and representative for Right to Bear Arms Insurance, and all-around badass, Scott Thompson.
I love the intro.
So, how you been?
I've been good. How have you been?
Super fantabulous. Super busy.
Well, that's good.
Yeah, I have no idea what made me decide that, hey, I just published, I just finished this book and now I've got to promote it. Let me go out and build online courses on the Constitution. I have no like sense of timing. It's like I have an idea and I just jump on it and do it. And now I've got two things going on at once and it's just not smart. But anyway.
Well, but one could feed into the other both ways. Someone who takes your course might want your book. Someone who reads your book might want your course. So I think it's a great thing to have.
Yeah, but I don't need to be promoting the book and trying to build the courses at the same time. Anyway, so you read, I wrote an article 2-3 weeks ago that was basically just spelling out the fact that all gun laws are unconstitutional because I can read. It doesn't,
Right.
Genius. I mean, come on. Some of the clearest things in the Constitution are Congress shall make no law and shall not be infringed. Those are not ambiguous in any way, shape, or form. It does not say Congress shall make no law. Well, unless there's a pandemic, or unless there's civil unrest, or unless this or that or whatever. And the same would not be infringed unless a whole bunch of people die in Chicago, or unless there is no unless. And the founding fathers, half of the men who signed the Constitution were lawyers. They knew better. If they wanted that unless to be there, they would have put it there.
Absolutely.
Now, granted, the Constitution was originally only supposed to apply to the federal government. So, using that logic, Congress, the federal government, well, they can't stifle your speech. They can't take your guns, but the state governments can. That was the original logic. And to be honest, I'd be a little better with that than what we got going on right now. We got, the federal government passing gun control laws, and then the Supreme Court saying, well, let's use that strict scrutiny idea. And as long as there's a compelling state interest, and as long as you're narrowly tailoring the law, wow, that's hard to say, then we'll let that stand. You could do that. Shall not be infringed unless it's a narrowly tailored law and the state has just cause. It's a bunch of BS.
Yep. And I agree with that. And I think the left is kind of playing a dangerous game, because we've already seen, and we've seen this in Bruin versus New York, where some long-held anti-gun legislation has been struck down because the left was trying to make it more, trying to get greedy.
Yep.
And I think what's going to happen is, as they continue to overreach, and let's face it, they've gotten arrogant because they've got the White House and they had Congress for 2 years, and they made it appear as though the election occurred as it did, and they got arrogant, and it's kind of the pride before the fall. I had a recent discussion about this. They've got this pride, and they even had a month for it, but not getting into that, but they've got this pride that we can do what we can do what we want because we have the will of the people. But if you listen to them, it's funny how much they lie about the will of the people. Not to get into political stuff, but Kamala Harris just said the other day, there are plenty of polls that show that she's doing an outstanding job as vice president.
Yeah. Polls
the problem is
family.
Yeah. The problem is there are no polls that exist that suggest that, but they know that in the media game, if we say something, nobody's going to check it.
Oh, come on. Joe Biden is the liar in chief. He had to drop out of his presidential run in was it 85 or whatever. He had to drop out of his first run for the presidency because he lied about, I graduated top of my class and I was, on a full academic scholarship. And no, you graduated close to the bottom of your class. You had a partial scholarship, and he plagiarizes constantly and never, plagiarizes in speech and doesn't accredit the original authors.
But in
my
fairness,
favorite lies are his Second Amendment related lies. Well,
Yes.
you know, when the Second Amendment was written, you couldn't own a cannon. BS, Joe. Not only could you own one, you were encouraged to own one. The biggest, deadliest weapon of war at that time, the war ship. Well, we didn't have any.
Right. They were privately funded.
They were all privately owned, privately funded, and licensed by the state.
And that's why I love the argument that some people have is, well, you know, that applied just to muskets, as if they were only muskets in 1776. But
I do believe the first repeater was patented in like 1720 or something like that.
Right. But the point being, at that time, they expected the people to have the same firepower as the government.
Absolutely. And you can have it now. You can buy a tank. You can buy a fighter jet.
Absolutely.
The hoops that you have to jump through to do it are ridiculous.
And the cost is prohibitive. Just because the government's made the cost prohibitive doesn't mean that it somehow changed the game. But there was an expectation that people would be prepared with the same type of firepower. Because remember, I saw something recently where someone said, you know, do you think that Thomas Jefferson and Andrew Jackson would have mutinied against the government? Yes,
absolutely.
Because the government was the crown, the British monarchy, and we revolted against them to form this great country. So the country was kind of founded on that. That's how we got here. The people were trained and they beat the government, despite all odds against them. So it's interesting when they take that argument.
That's really funny when they do that because, did you never hear of the Revolutionary War?
Right. and I can guarantee you, Pete, some of them have not.
That's sad.
Because it's not something that's taught in school.
Yeah.
They're teaching limited stuff. When it's interesting, when Trump got elected, and he was up there and he had the bulletproof glass in front of him as he was swearing in, we asked my stepdaughter, and I don't want to embarrass her, this was many years ago, she was much younger. We asked her, do you know why that glass is there? And she said, I don't know, because it's windy. And I said, no, it's to prevent any assassinations. Can you name any of the assassinated presidents? And she said, yes, Martin Luther King.
Oh.
And I said, no, he was not a president. She could not name a president that had been assassinated. And I'm not blaming her. I'm blaming the school.
How old was she?
Because let's see, that would have been about 12, maybe 11 or 12. So,
but would at least be able to say Lincoln.
Absolutely. Right. You think Lincoln and Kennedy, her grandparents were alive when Kennedy happened.
Yeah, I don't expect anybody to remember McKinley.
Right.
I remember McKinley. You know what? I actually have a biography of McKinley and a picture of McKinley in my dining room.
Excellent.
Because my house was built in 1900 when McKinley was president.
Excellent. I love that. And my wife, who's a historian, would love that as well. But that again shows, though, your patriotism. And unfortunately, patriotism has become a bad word in this day and age. My stepdaughter, still going to school. She's older now. She's starting to see that what the left is saying isn't making sense.
Right.
So we're at least proud of that. But she sees that, patriotism doesn't exist. And you look at the World Cup recently, the Women's World Cup for soccer. Our players would just as soon not have been on the field or not have them play our national anthem. But you see some of these other countries like Vietnam,
right?
Who look at their quality of life, look at what their government, look at their history. They were so excited to be representative of their country.
What about, was it the Afghani women who had to be smuggled out of the country in order to compete?
Right. Some of the and some of them, they can't go home because if they don't wear, the head covering, there's going to be a bounty on them. They can't even go home from Iran, from Afghanistan. So it's funny, and we don't hear enough from the WNBA player, Brittany Griner,
right,
who went to Russia. She's turned around a little bit,
but she's not outspoken about it.
Right. And that's the thing, is we need to hear more. People need to hear more of what she saw and experienced in a country that has socialism and communism, because everyone talks about Russia being communist. And really, it was the Communist Party, but it was socialism that they had back in the 70s and 80s. It was the Communist Party, but a lot of it was the socialist Marxism and all those bad isms. And I got a little bit of an education on that because I do a little work with Yakov Smirnov.
Really?
So yeah, I help him with some stuff.
He was hilarious back in the day. I would love to meet him.
He is hilarious today. Let me tell you, he's just as funny.
You got to do something. I have him on the show. Give him my phone. I would love to meet Yakov Smirnov.
I'll see what I can do. And in fact, if you look at my personal YouTube, I did put up a little short of me and him one day where we talked about gun control in the United States and gun control in Russia and how different it is. I'll let y'all check that out. But he is just as funny today as he was when I watched him growing up. He's great. He's very funny, very humble, and it's great to work with him. But he can
what I really
talk about some of those things.
I will send you a free electronic copy of my book if you can get it to him and have him write a little blurb for the back cover. I got like 2 weeks left to get blurbs written onto the back cover of the book.
I'll see what I can do. I can't make a promise, but I'll see what I can do.
My heart would explode if I got Yakov Smirnov to write a blurb.
In fact, here, let me. This is to show you how much he loves our country, and this kind of came up. This is a little painting that he did, and so I keep that. I put it down when we're on camera, but I keep that in my office because, again, that patriotism. Here's a guy who was born somewhere else. He comes here. He appreciates this country because he knows what it's like to not have the freedoms that we have.
Yeah, proper legal immigrants are probably the most patriotic group out there.
100%.
Let's see here. Let's talk about this. So we got Scott Thompson from Right to Bear Insurance. So it's a great time to tell you about Right to Bear Insurance. ProtectWithBear.com. Use code Lighthouse when you're there, and you will get a 10% discount on the most affordable carry insurance on the market, according to Pew Pew Tactical and a bunch of other awards from other sites. They're the best. They're the best value for your money. If you own a firearm, whether you carry it every day like me or not, if you own a firearm, you need to have legal protection. Right to Bear Insurance at protectwithbear.com. Use code Lighthouse for a 10% saving on the plan that starts at only $11 a month.
And when we talk about Second Amendment, you and I briefly spoke before coming on. The Democrats, there were 25 Democrats that introduced a bill to put 1,000% excise tax on what they consider to be any assault rifle, which again, or actually they call it any assault weapon. They're trying to pull in any gun that can accept more than 10 rounds and is semi-automatic is now an assault weapon. So they're even broadening their scope a little from the rifle to now. I mean, every Glock out there, just about, you can get a magazine that holds more than 10 rounds. And so now we're going to call everything an assault weapon. I mean, if we're going to lie about one weapon, why not lie about an entire genre?
You know what's really funny? I just noticed recently, I definitely want to get back to that 1,000% excise thing because that's ridiculous. I just noticed recently that most fully automatic, like, the 50 caliber two-handed, like most fully automatic, genuine military grade weapons do not fit the government's definition of assault weapons.
Really?
Yeah. Well, because you look at the definitions, the assault weapons, they talk about magazines with more than 10 or 15 or whatever whatever limit they want to put on it. They talk about forward grips. They talk about accessory rails. They talk about all of these cosmetic-y things. Think of a 50 caliber machine gun.
Right. Belt fed. There's no magazine.
Belt fed, no magazine. There ain't no forward grip on the thing because you burn the hand off.
Right.
There's no accessory rail. There's no
right.
folding stock. There's no all
You're
of
right.
the things that are, yeah. So I can get like for those of you out there that aren't into guns, imagine any movie you've ever seen where somebody is driving down and there is a machine gun mounted in the back of a pickup truck. Imagine that, by most definitions, is not an assault weapon. You want to take my AR-15 where I have to pull the trigger every time to make a bullet come out.
Yep.
But you'll that 50 caliber machine gun that has, I don't know, how many bullets are in 9 yards of 50 caliber ammo?
Right. Yep.
That's where the phrase "whole 9 yards" came from, right? Like I
did
from
not.
the whole 9 yards. Yeah, it's the belts of ammo that feed those 50. They're 9 yards long.
Man. Yeah, and there's I'm thinking of how wide even a 50 cal. It's the circumference of 50.
Oh, yeah, it's half an inch.
Yeah,
it's half an inch in diameter.
Yep, and 9 yards is 27 feet. I like it. But
Right, let's go back to that.
Yeah, so with them trying to do that, what we're seeing is, again, they're overstepping, right? They're trying to go around the Second Amendment. They know they can't defeat the Second Amendment, so they're going to say, oh, well, we're not telling you can't have a gun. It's just that $1,000 gun you wanted now costs $10,000.
Right.
So it changed, which now nobody's going to be able to afford. So they're trying to, but that's already been, the Supreme Court has already dealt with that. So when I was looking it up, 25 Democrats put it forward this time. Last time when they had control of the House, there was 37. So 12 dropped off, knowing that it's going nowhere. But the fact that they're willing to try, and this is what concerns me for law-abiding citizens who are carrying a weapon with them on a daily basis, is if you get involved in a use of force situation, are you going to be the guinea pig? Are you going to be the one that the district attorney wants to make an example out of, or wants to make a case or make case law from? So they're going to, even though they know, like those 25 Congress people know that this is going nowhere, even though they know that this case is going to go nowhere, even if they get a conviction, it's going to get overruled when it gets to the Supreme Court. They're going to use you and me and the other law-abiding Americans out there who are carrying guns for self-defense. They're going to use that against us, and it's going to bleed you dry. And you were talking about your salary information. How about if you had to sell your house? That's why Right to Bear exists. For a low cost, you can have that attorney start to finish on any criminal or civil action So you have that. And the great thing is, it's not just if you use the firearm. It's any legal weapon. So if you do anything in self-defense, we're going to cover you. And I think it's important when we look at these times where we've all seen cases where someone got arrested, someone got charged, and we didn't think they should. And even if the charges get dropped later, it costs that person money. It costs that person time away from work, which might have led to them losing their job. So I think it's unfortunate that we're in a society where a product like Right to Bear is necessary, but that's where we're at.
I was quite surprised. I'm sure you've seen the video of the Sikh shopkeeper in California who beat the guy with a stick that was trying to rob him blind. I was pleasantly surprised to see that he is not being charged. I thought for sure that shopkeeper was going to be brought up on charges.
I thought so too. You know what surprised me most about that story though was something I read today. And I've got 20 years in law enforcement. I'm not trying to talk bad about law enforcement. But that 7-Eleven is across the street from a police department.
Oh, I didn't know
from
that.
Police station. Yeah, which tells me that the laws and the way they're being enforced in that area are making people believe this wasn't the guy's first time. The reason they took action against him is because he had done the same thing.
Time, yeah.
Yes, several days before and several days before that. And if you saw the video, I mean, he wheels a trash can over there and just starts pulling all the cigarettes into it. And he's going to walk out with that trash can like he did 3 or 4 times before. The fact that they're that brazen across the street from a police department tells me that the laws or the enforcement of those laws is so lackadaisical that the criminals feel they can do whatever they want. And that's something we need to change in this country.
Absolutely. Now, I rarely leave my house without a firearm, and I do have a badge. I'm an elected constable. I don't act as law enforcement. I don't use my badge other than on election day. I go down and I protect the polls, but I carry my badge all day, every day. If I leave my house, my badge is in my pocket. And as long as I'm not going to work, there's a gun on my hip and my badge in my pocket. I have no desire to go out looking for lawbreakers. I have no desire to be a full-time police officer. But if I see something, I'm going to stop it. Like the wife kind of laughs at me. Like we go someplace, we go to the movies and she's like, you don't need that. We're going to the movies. I'm like, yeah, I do. Because the time I don't bring the firearm is the time I'm going to need the firearm. And then when we get to the movies and we sit down in the theater, I'm in my head, I'm looking at, okay, well, if there's a threat in here, it's coming from that direction. So what am I? I'm going to throw her that way and I'm going that way. And, and it's sad that our society has devolved to the point that I have to feel compelled to think about that no matter where we go. Like, go into a restaurant, I want my back to a wall facing the front door so I can see people coming in. Like,
Yep. It's not a good feeling. And unfortunately, until criminals are fully held accountable, the thing is, we don't need new laws.
No.
There are plenty of laws on the books right now that probably violate and do violate the Second Amendment in a lot of cases.
All of them.
But if we would enforce some of them and put people in jail, then we wouldn't have this situation. And here's the proof. In all of the cities that they've come up with this zero cash bail, where they just let everyone out, crime has gone through the roof. And so that case again with the 7-Eleven across from the police station, that guy has also been arrested several times, but wasn't prosecuted, wasn't in jail. And that's someone that shouldn't have been allowed to be out to do that. And in that area, I also read they recently increased the level of theft that becomes a felony.
Mm-hmm.
And that, that basically says, hey, if you do under this amount, then it's just a misdemeanor. And I know in some states that amount is now $1,000.
Right.
Which if you're stealing TVs, yeah, you're going to get to that with one TV potentially. But if you're going for something like cigarettes, or they're going out and they're stealing dishwashing liquid or washing machine liquid, and when they say, well, people are just doing it because they need to survive. Well, you don't need 58 bottles of Tide to survive. If you walked out with one and a bag of bread, you know what? I can maybe feel for you. But when you're loading up shopping carts and walking out and you're getting them to where they're at $995 worth of goods, you've been doing this. You know what's going on. You know how many bottles you can take before it becomes a felony, and you're playing the game. And unfortunately, we've tipped the rules in favor of the bad guys, and we need to turn that around.
If I'm playing security guard or whatever at a store, let's say a Walmart, they hire me as armed security. If I see somebody trying to sneak out with a loaf of bread and a jar of peanut butter, I'm probably going to turn my head and let them go. Because they're taking a loaf of bread and a jar of peanut butter. They're starving. They have children to feed and they don't have money. You try pushing out a flat screen TV or, a whole shopping cart full of laundry. That's
Steaks
ridiculous.
And steak and lobster tail. They're going for the high end stuff that they can resell for money. And that's the difference.
That is exactly the difference. Like, if it really was for survival, you'd be taking staple items. A bag of rice, a giant sack of dried beans that you could feed a family with for a month.
Right.
But that's not what it is. No, it's all about making us the bad guys and being so open and tolerant, and you have to accept everybody. I don't have to accept anybody. You might think I'm a jerk. That's your right. My right. If I want to be a jerk, I can be a jerk. That's the beauty of America.
We were founded on we were the bratty kid who wanted to tell his parents we're going to start our own family, and we did. And that's what that's what we need to remember is that at that time also everything was done for the best of the majority, and unfortunately right now we're pandering to the silent minority.
Very small.
I don't use minority as a racial term, but everything that we're doing is for the smallest number of people. And yet we have to change all of our rules and laws to make them feel better, as opposed to being out there. So everyone should go and sign up at Protect with Bear and use Lighthouse as the code. And if you have any questions, I'm here every second Thursday. So come join us back on the show.
That's right. Scott Thompson, Right to Bear Insurance. ProtectWithBear.com. Use code Lighthouse, second Thursday of every month. See you next month, Scott.
All right. See ya.
Take all our money and send it abroad.
Hey, we're clear.
All right.
Yeah, that $1,000. We didn't spend as much time on that as I thought we would. We kept running around with other stuff, but 1,000%.
It's insane. It's insane.
How clear is shall not be infringed?
Apparently it's muddy because they keep infringing and infringing and infringing. So, we'll see what happens in due time. But right now it seems like we're going to keep getting infringed until, again, I think the left is going to go too far. They already started. And once they push too far, and it swings back, it's going to knock them on their ass.
Well, that's kind of what happened in the 1980s when they went after handguns. They went after handguns, and then they lost almost every seat they had in Congress.
Yep.
Which is why they don't go after handguns now, even though handguns are like 90% of the crime.
Well, but they have a short memory span because think about it. Those in that time frame, not all of them were there. I mean, Pelosi was there and what's her name and Biden, but a lot of them weren't there. They don't remember the smackdown that they got, and they're going to remember when it comes again, because it's coming.
I hope you're right.
Yep, I think it's coming sooner rather than later. So we'll see. But thanks for having me on. Absolutely. And I'll talk to Yakov and see if I can get him to do a little blurb.
Yeah, I mean, I'll send you an e-copy of the book to forward to him, or if you want to connect he and I'll send it to him or whatever.
Let me talk to him first, see if he's somewhat interested, and then I'll say, hey, I'll have Peter send you a copy of the book.
That'd be awesome. And I'd love to have him on the show. As a kid, Yakov Smirnoff used to make me laugh so crazy. Anyway, hey, Paul, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me.
We're in a commercial break right now, just chit-chatting.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll see about getting him on the show because he's got a little extra time. They just had some bad storms down there, and he's in Branson.
Oh, yeah.
And he lost part of his roof.
Oh, back.
Yeah, he was out of town, and unfortunately, my wife just said the mic is still live.
Yeah. Don't worry about it. We're good.
No, she's listening in the other room.
I know, but
she's on.
If she's watching the video stream, it's fine.
Okay.
If you watch on video, you get this extra in the commercial break chit chat stuff that you don't get when you listen on Republic Broadcasting Network. Right now, the people listening on Republic Broadcasting Network are hearing commercials.
I got you. So, but yeah, so he was out of town, and he comes back, and it had rained for an entire day after the roof came off. So he's suffering damage, but it'll be good. The insurance will make him better than whole, I hope.
I hope so. Hey, let me switch over to Paul here. We're back.
All right, man. Talk to you later.
The American dream has become a nightmare. Signs of the time are on cardboard on corners in town. Like a cancer that's silently spreading, there's an unspoken fear. We're on our way down. We must take America back.
Welcome back to the top of the second hour of National Intel Report live on Republic Broadcasting Network, Liberty Lighthouse on Mojo 50 Radio, Patriot Nation Radio Network, and any place else you might be watching or listening to us from. As I promised, we've got Paul Engel from the Constitution Studied, or I keep saying the. Paul Engel from constitutionstudy.com is joining us, as I promised, right here at the top of the hour. However, we've got Sarah in Oregon on line one. So with your permission, Paul, I'd like to take the caller before we...
Be my guest. It's your show.
Hey, all right. Welcome to the show, Sarah.
Hi. As I said before, and I will say again, please share the show out. And be important that I have a Twitter space next week about the importance of sharing the right-wing content. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you very much, Sarah. Have a great night. Sarah is one of the biggest supporters of our show. She calls almost every week, and just to remind people to share links and spread the word, because we on the right side of the political aisle, we don't get help from the algorithms. Anyway, Paul Engel, welcome.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here today.
I came across you in your podcast, the Constitution Study, and I really like your perspective on things, partly because you're a constitutional originalist like myself, and partly because you do a pretty darn good job of explaining things in a way that Joe Schmo can understand without getting buried in the weeds.
Thank you. I think that's my superpower, is the ability to explain complex and odd things in a way that is easily understandable by the average everyday person.
Yeah. And
which makes sense. The tagline for the Constitution Study is returning the Constitution to we the people. So it kind of helps if I can explain it in a way that we the people understand.
Right. Like, we the people can read the Constitution and understand its meaning, but apparently our Supreme Court can't. If
there are 9 people that need a reading comprehension plan, it's those justices, those high priests in black robes.
Right. The previous guest, Scott Thompson from Right to Bear Insurance, the best, most affordable concealed carry insurance on the market. I was talking with him, and I said, like, the two clearest, most unambiguous statements in the U.S. Constitution are Congress shall make no law and shall not be infringed. Neither of those has any question to it. Like, those are the clearest possible wordings. Yet the Supreme Court has come up with this whole strict scrutiny thing where as long as there's a compelling state interest and as long as they narrowly tailor the law, well, then we can do it.
Which is evidence of the bad behavior, which is why they should no longer hold that office. because Article 3, Clause 1 says the judges of both the Supreme and inferior court shall hold their office during good behavior.
Not life tenure. Good behavior.
Exactly.
Fantastic point. I love that. You also, I don't know how to bring this. I don't know how to segue here. The idea of precedence. Okay, stare decisis. Like, okay, let the old ruling stand. I get that that's their starting position. Old ruling is this. Let's this stand unless. I think there should be a step before that.
Well, there's a legal distinction between precedent and stare decisis. Precedent says, I have a situation before me. Let me see what previous people have written about that to give me some context and maybe a different understanding. Let me look at another point of view. Stare decisis says, I'm not going to change that decision unless I've got a really, really, really good reason to do so. And the language of the Constitution of the United States is not a really, really, really good reason to those 9 high priests in black robes.
Really? Well, my suggestion would be that, if those those tyrants in black robes, as I usually say, the tyrants on the bench, I think step 1 should be read the text of said law and say, is this constitutional? Like, that should be step 1. Before even looking at the details of the case. Step 1 is, oh, wait, so you want to put, again, going back to the previous guest, you want to do 1,000% tax on firearms. Well, a tax is an infringement, shall not be infringed, unconstitutional, no case necessary, no witnesses necessary. We don't need a hearing. This law is unconstitutional.
Oh, yeah. If they actually read the Constitution, we have to understand. Now, I've been doing this for several years now, and I always ask lawyers. Every lawyer I meet, I ask them a question. When you were in law school, did you study the Constitution or constitutional law? I've had one gentleman in like 6 years tell me they studied the Constitution. Everyone else is playing telephone with the Constitution, meaning some judge wrote an opinion, and then some judge wrote an opinion referring to that. Another judge wrote an opinion referring to that. And when you look at Supreme Court opinions, like I unfortunately have to, you almost never see the Constitution actually quoted. It's sometimes referred to, but they almost always quote a case, an opinion about what it actually says and what it actually means. Now, I have to, are you familiar with the injunction preventing the Biden administration from using social media to censor?
Yeah. Again,
I just wrote an article about it. I went deep into the injunction. I love it. Not only did this judge, Doherty, I believe his name is, not only did he actually quote the Constitution, he actually quoted the First Amendment as the First Amendment. He quoted several of our founding fathers. He quoted, he had quotes from people, and these are actual quotes of people, and said, wait a second, the law is quite simple here. Mm-hmm. The reason he issued the injunction against, I think it was like something like 9 different departments and almost 40 different people, is he says the evidence that's been shown is so egregious that not only does it show that the plaintiffs will most likely win on the merits, he said, but it's an abridgment of the right of, they say free speech. Most of it's actually freedom of the press. And that in itself is sufficient reason to stop it. It's such an egregious violation that we don't need to wonder, well, is it really big enough to be a problem to not warrant the injunction? No, you're violating one of the fundamental rights, inalienable rights of these people. It's automatically, if it's true, that's bad, and we have to stop it.
Right. And that doesn't happen from our judges very often anymore. It's
very rarely, rarely. If you look at most of my reviews of court opinions, even the ones that the right wing are lauding, hey, great, they did this. It's like, yeah,
Like Dobbs,
okay. Dobbs, for example, I just wrote a review of the Postal Service, the right to that. And even though I think they came to the right answer, so much of the muckety muck that was in there, they didn't get to the right answer for the right reason. And people ask, why is that a problem? Because the only reason that this man's right to celebrate the Christian Sabbath is protected is because 6 of the 9 justices said, yeah, we should let him have it. It's not based on the law. It's not based on the Constitution. It's simply based on the opinion of a judge, which means the next judge in line can simply say, nah, we don't think so.
Right. And if you're not familiar with that case, I work for the post office, so I actually followed this case pretty well. And I live in Pennsylvania, and so did he. This fella who works for the post office was hired before the post office had picked up this contract with Amazon. And at that time, which is when I got hired, you're a federal employee. You had Sundays and holidays off of work. And then we get this contract with Amazon. And all of a sudden, we're now having to work Sundays and holidays. And this guy said, that wasn't the rules when I was hired. When I was hired, I had Sundays off. I'm a Christian. Sundays are the Sabbath. You can't make me work on Sundays. That wasn't part of the shtick. When I took the job, that's and the court finally, they upheld it and said, you're right. That wasn't the rules when you were hired.
It's funny because he actually went to a different office that didn't have the Amazon contract, so he wouldn't have to work on Sundays. And then that office got added to it. I mean, he did everything right. And again, I believe he was right. They were right to say, as federal employees, as government employees, his right to freely exercise his religion could not be infringed by the Postal Service because it's a government entity.
What's really funny is I kind of jokingly said that when we got the Amazon contract and that started. I was only with the post office for like 6 months. And I thought, hey, look, I'm a federal employee. I got Sundays and holidays off for the rest of my life. Woohoo! And then 6 months later, they're like, and I even said, hey, my employer is the federal government. Can they do this? First Amendment says you can't infringe on my free exercise of religion.
Right. Because the U.S. Postal Service is a creation of Congress. It owes its existence to Congress. Therefore, Congress cannot make a law creating entity that infringes on the right. There's a logical link there that is missed in so much of the free expression litigation that I see.
Right. Well, God forbid that. Anyway, give me just a second to do one of these sponsor things. Romika Designs, Romika, Romika Designs, Romika Designs.com. Custom laser engraving, custom laser cutting, anything that you can imagine that can be made with a laser. My friend Ron over at RomikaDesigns.com can do it. His favorite thing to do is custom work. You can go there and you can look on his website, and he's got stuff where you can buy Christmas ornaments and crap that's already designed. But his favorite thing to do is custom work. So if you've got an idea of something that you want to have laser etched, laser engraved, laser cut, email my friend Ron, RomikaDesigns.com. And while you're there, use the code Lighthouse. Save yourself a couple of dollars. That's code Lighthouse at RomikaDesigns.com. ROMIKA. So, right. The Supreme Court, oh my God. The recent, what do you call them? The Senate confirmations for judges have wanted to make me cry for the future of our nation. I don't remember. I want to say it was Ketanji Brown Jackson for the Supreme Court, but it may not have been. Hers was definitely I'm not a biologist. I'm not going to define a woman, but I think it was her too, where she was being asked, well, can you tell me what Article 1 of the Constitution does. And she's like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Like, what? Articles. If you don't know what Article 6 says, okay. Article 5, maybe. Article 4, I might even give you a pass. But 1, 2, and 3.
And remember,
setting up the legislature, the executive, and the judicial. And you're a judge.
A federal judge, which means she took an oath to support this document. She has no clue what it says.
Right. And that kills. I actually wrote an article about that recently. The idea, the oath of office, how many, literally millions of people take the oath of office, which says support and defend the Constitution of the United States. And they've never read the Constitution. They don't understand the Constitution. How can you swear an oath to something that you've never read or that you don't have a reasonable understanding of?
Well, it gets even better than that. So how can you tell when a politician is lying?
Their lips are moving.
Right. But what does it say about the American people? That we knowingly and repeatedly hire liars, crooks, and thieves to exercise our power in our name. And then, I can't remember the officer's name in Casablanca. I'm shocked to find out that this man and woman lied to me.
Mm-hmm.
You knew they were lying to when you hired them.
Yep. Yeah. Joe in particular. Oh my God. Joe Biden is the liar in chief. He has a history of lying. We all knew it back in the 1980s, but yet we kept electing him and now he's president.
He had to step away from a campaign because he got caught.
Two.
Yeah. He got caught for plagiarism.
Yeah.
And yet we still hired it.
The first time for lying about his college credentials and all that. Yep. And the second time for plagiarism.
Yeah. And yet we hired him.
Uh-huh. Chris in Virginia on line 1. Welcome to the show, Chris.
Hey, guys.
Yeah.
Hey, guys. How you guys doing? Great show. Yeah, I agree with everything you're saying. And I cannot not change the subject that much, but basically I saw a tweet today that rocked me to the core. Massachusetts Lieutenant Governor. All right, that's the Vice Governor, right? Massachusetts Lieutenant Governor. This horrible human being, together with the people behind her on the stage at the press conference, basically said, if you have a business and you have some extra space or an extra room, please consider hosting a migrant family. And blah, 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 and blah, 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 other things. And by the way, if you have an extra room or suite in your home, please consider housing a migrant family. Right now, our resources are the most important thing is housing. And my head almost exploded. I'm like, what?
I heard that. And it doesn't make my head explode yet. I heard that and I laughed. I'm okay.
Yeah.
I'm okay with any government anywhere asking me if I will do something. I'm okay with asking, because if you're asking, I can say no.
Well, we know where it leads.
Bingo. As long as it stays an ask, I'll just laugh at you. The minute you tell me that, oh, well, you live in a 4-bedroom house and there's only 2 people there, well, that means you've got 3 bedrooms that you could put migrants in. Not happening, my friend.
Well, that lady even floating. All those people on that stage deserve to hang from a rope. I'm saying for her even suggesting people should be getting up in arms. But again, like your co-host is saying, if people are going to take it up the butt, guess what? They deserve it, right?
That's right. We bring it on ourselves. We keep electing these idiots. Hey, Chris, thank you very much for your call. Always appreciate it. And call back next week.
And I actually I lived in New York State for most of my life. I was right across the border from Massachusetts, and we had a lot of interesting names for people from Massachusetts. But if they're upset with the lieutenant governor asking them to give up their rooms to illegal aliens, my question is, why are you hiring her and the governor who put these policies in place in the first place? If you we spend too much time trying to fix the symptom, not fix the problem. The problem is we hire idiots to represent us, and we allow a system. We've allowed the system to become so corrupted that even if somebody, an honest person, were to try and run for office, they would be so vilified. I mean, their family would be mocked and destroyed for even daring to try.
Yep.
And we say, well, we've got no choices. Well, you've allowed a system to exist where when people who actually would support the Constitution actually stand up and say, hey, I'll try, they get attacked and you do nothing. You do nothing to protect them. You do nothing to support them. You do nothing to help them. You sit going, gee, I wonder why Joe Nice Guy stopped running.
Well, I have a parody presidential campaign, I guess you could say. I'm a federal employee. I'm forbidden from running for any office by the Hatch Act. But I made a peterforpresident.com website, peterforpresident.com, and I made a campaign speech announcement, and I made a campaign State of the Union address. And after this first set of Republican debates here, I'm probably going to like chop up the video and take the questions and then answer them myself and have fun. But yeah, somebody like me is never going to get elected. Somebody who says, hey, wait, you and I could read the Constitution. The Constitution, let's take Article 1 that says, plain and simple, all legislative power is vested in a Congress of these United States.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All
legislative meaning lawmaking. Right. Legislative meaning lawmaking. All lawmaking is vested in Congress, which means all of those executive bureaucrats making rules, though, that they're all unconstitutional, which means they're all null and void.
Right.
That isn't my words. Alexander Hamilton and multiple Supreme Court precedent that an unconstitutional act is void. It doesn't create a law. It doesn't create a crime. You cannot be punished for it. It's as if it never happened.
Right. But, there's that whole Administrative Procedures Act from, was it 1946? Well, that says, we can set up these other agencies and they can make regulations.
Yeah, except that rule, that Administrative Procedures Act, is unconstitutional. Therefore, it's void.
Right, because the Constitution says all legislative power shall be vested in the Congress of these United States.
We
doesn't
have
say or other group, agency,
right,
whatever, as created by Congress.
We have a separation of powers for a very, very good reason. You do not want to vest. You want to see what happens when you vest too much power in one group of people. Take a look at the current executive branch.
I was just going to say
at the evidence of lying, of tampering with elections, of malicious prosecution, of tampering with witnesses, and the unwillingness to deal with the evidence of bribery, criminal drug use, lying on federal forms. That's what happens when you invest too much power in one of those branches.
Yep.
If we actually had a Congress with a spine, in addition to the political show trials they're putting on, they would be defunding the Department of Justice, the Department of Energy, the Department of Education, the FBI. Right? They would simply go, you don't get another dollar until you get your house in order and you prove it to us.
Exactly.
And it's well, then fix your problem. And if you can't fix a problem, then you don't get any money.
We got 2 minutes left. I have to make an announcement, and then I want people to be able to find you. My announcement is the next half hour is pre-recorded. I'm not here. I'm taking my beautiful wife out to a concert. Y'all have fun. I recorded something earlier today for y'all to listen to. Paul, where can we find you?
Constitutionstudy.com is the best place to find me. I put out an article and a video every week. You can also find the podcast for that on your favorite podcast app. Just look for the Constitution Study. I'm also on America Out Loud Talk Radio 5 days a week, 4 p.m. Eastern Time. You can listen to that. You can also find those on podcast as well. And the one thing I love about my website, if you have a question Simply go there. There's an ask a question button, and I will do my best to answer your question as long as it's about the Constitution. I occasionally get these weird questions, but
Well, I listened just recently. Was listening to an old interview with Associate Justice Antonin Scalia, where he said at that time, and this is probably the early '90s, there were roughly 3,000 federal laws and 300,000 regulations, all of which created by executive branch agencies and therefore null and void, unconstitutional, don't exist, figments of our imagination.
and like the emperor has no clothes, everybody goes along because they're afraid of saying no.
Yep.
I just want to be that little boy that goes, he's naked.
He is. I am not sure what's going on, but we should be right about in a commercial break, but I'm not hearing any music. Mr. Producer, did you forget to turn my volume up? Or should I just keep talking?
Oh, it wasn't loud enough. We can go to break now.
There we go. 3-minute break. On the other side of the break, you got recorded me from earlier today. Peace, everybody. See you next week.
In favor of the homeowner. If your mortgage has been sold or assigned since closing the loan, it may be defective and you may be paying the wrong party and the lender may not have standing.
Oh, he turned it back down. So I guess we're clear. Paul, thank you very much.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
I greatly enjoyed this conversation. You and I look at a lot of this stuff very much the same way. I'd love to have you back as often as you like.
I make myself. I love answering questions. I love being involved. I walked away from a 30-year IT career to do this for a living. This is fun.
Well, I have a handful of guests that come back like once a month. So my show is Thursdays and only Thursdays. Let's see here. So I've got second and fourth Thursdays I could fit you in for a half an hour either week.
Okay.
Any preference? Second Thursday or fourth Thursday?
Let's do the second Thursdays.
Okay. I'll get it set up and send it to you in email format. And
what I'll do is, because I have a mind like a steel. Oh, look, a chicken. Is when that comes in, I'll set up just as a recurring, so that I could, again, if it's not in my little black brain, it doesn't happen.
Yeah, that's what I do. I have them all set up as recurring things. You'll get a new link from me every month.
Okay, well then, cool.
And
I just like holding the time, so I don't book something else at that time. Is mostly what it is.